huge takeaway for Cluely is that attention and distribution matters a lot more than the product right now, which kind of sucks if you feel like your product is like the best and it's really changing things, and that belief that like if you build it they will come. It's just not the way that things are working right now. So you really have to look at new avenues in order to get those eyeballs that you want. They're doing it by being strategic in their controversy, and it's working for them because the type of product that they're building and the space that they're building in, it makes sense. But that's not going to be true of most companies. So how can you kind of raise your profile, raise your product's profile, by kind of claiming as much attention as you can? And another thing is to build on what I was saying from the Canva billboard idea, is that like thinking about ideas and being creative and out of the box. I really hate to say out of the box. It seems so cliche now, but it's like, how are you thinking about how you're promoting yourself in a way as like a total campaign and not just a one-off idea of things that you're like putting out there?
I think my takeaway for Cluely will be, as a marketer, like really know what messages you want to own and what you want somebody else to own. Like what are the messages or the things that you say and do that you as the brand own? But then what do you want your customers to say? What do you want co-marketers to say? Or, the creators that you work with, right? Really think about how that messaging is different, because what I think is great about Cluely is that whatever riskiness there is, they're basically absorbing that risk by being the ones who are creating the content.
I like that. That's a really smart takeaway about like a thing that doesn't seem very obvious, but now that you've mentioned it, I was like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, because you're right. Many other users are not going to want to admit that they use the software.
Yeah,
So they
but
kind of have to do it themselves.
totally, but doesn't mean they won't buy, right? Like they'll just
Exactly.
like buy it quietly.
Yeah. So, but hey, as long as you're making those sales, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's true. All right, our next piece on Meta encouraging zero-click marketing. Look, here we've heard it from Meta, right? Virtually all Facebook post views go to content with no external link. So marketers take heed, I mean, figure out what content you can create that has standalone value. Don't be reliant on clicks, because you're probably not going to get it anyway. And even if you do put in that link, your reach is going to get killed. So collect the data, make your point, test what you can, and share notes with your peers.
Yeah. For me, the takeaway is that you have more power over like your content now than ever. So like, be creative with it. What's going to make you stand out to like your customer? You already know that they're in these channels. You know that they're going to be on LinkedIn and like Facebook, Twitter. You know that they're going to do that. So figure out the type of content that works on those platforms and then create that content,
Yeah.
like, you might have to experiment a lot more than you're used to. But maybe that's part of like what's exciting about it, is that like, this is the new frontier, and that content, well, I mean, we already knew content is king, right? But like now we're kind of like re-kinging it. For the Valtteri Bottas announcement, I think the big takeaway for me is like, let your influencers own their personality and like put out the content that like works for them, without trying to like hinder them too much with like your corporate ness of like, this is how things should be and this is how we want to display our brand. Like, give guidelines. Of course, you don't want them to like say something negative or like make it seem controversial, but give them the freedom to take what you want them to announce and like have fun with it, because that's going to get you far more eyeballs than if you just kind of announce it in the regular templated format that people are used to.
Yeah. And yeah, I think I'll also just say, like, really emphasize, when you engage a creator, especially a star, like a star athlete, really empower them to own their story. Like, figure out how you can, like, how can you position your partnership together as it's their story and you're the one along for the ride? Even though you're the one who's paying the dollars,
Yeah.
like, I get it, you're writing the checks, but at the end of the day, no consumer is going to care about your story. They're going to care about the individuals. So the more that you align yourself with that, the more successful I think you'll be.
Definitely. the aura of like the celebrity is always gonna shine that light on you a lot more than if you had kind of, you know, ruined that for them.
And then finally, in lessons in out of home advertising from Canva, I really want to just home in that notion of show, don't tell. Like, just the more clear you can be with your marketing, with your messaging, the better off you'll be. And these are just really great examples of how you can do that.
And then I'd say my takeaway is don't just go for the big shiny thing. And, you know, you have a limited amount of budget. Like, how can you use those dollars to the utmost, right? Like, instead of being in like downtown, you know, New York and Times Square or like in London, they kind of had a little offshoot in Waterloo Station, but they had a 14 billboard takeover, which ended up causing them to have more eyeballs because of the attention that they drew from, you know, people admiring the campaign, and then from news sources kind of jumping onto it. I saw it because marketers are like sharing this. So think about the greater marketing campaign that you'll have, and not just necessarily how you can get, you know, the biggest space that you can, just because you have the money for it.